Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Emily Selling Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to share this space with you. I'm Emily Selling, your host. If you're from the US or any English speaking country, you can also say Amy. I feel like it's just easier to say it that way. So, hi, I'm Amy or Emily. In Chinese, it's Mei Li. Um, So yeah, just a little side note. I'm really excited for today's podcast episode. Today, I want to talk about the menstrual cycle and the four phases of the menstrual cycle. And the reason why I want to talk about this is that I feel like this is not talked about enough. I personally, when I first got my period, I was 13 and I was so ashamed of getting my period that I wished I would never get it again. And lo and behold, my wish was answered for about 13 or like 11 more years. I did not have a regular period. So my regular period started when I was 24, like 2 or 1.5 years ago.
I meant to say 23, so it was when I was 23 and a half.
And I think there's so much shame around the menstrual cycle as well as not enough education. And I wish I had known all of these things sooner so that I could have skipped that part of amenorrhea or losing my period. And I think I'm not the only one. I've talked to a lot of friends and just women in general, and I know that I'm not the only one. So if you're suffering, I don't like to use the word suffering, but if you're currently going through a phase where you should be having your period, I also don't like to use that word, but like where you have your period irregularly, you're not alone, and this can be treated and healed. And you can go to a doctor and see different kinds of people. I also want to say I'm not a professional woman's doctor, but again, I've gone through my own fair share of not having my period. And like when I didn't have my period for a couple of years, I just started to like get so curious and interested in the woman's in this like menstrual cycle, because at first when I was 13, I was really ashamed of it, and I feel like this did not just come from me. I think this is something that we're subconsciously taught and programmed in today's society, that women's periods are dirty or shameful. But in truth, it is something so holy and divine to be bleeding every single month. In fact, I'm reading this great book right now. It's called The Great Cosmic Mother. And I read a page, I can't really find the passage right now, but I read in this book that in like ancient times, men were so jealous of like the woman's cycle because we like get really intuitive, and like women would get downloads and like bleed together intense, and like it was a really celebrated and magical time of the month. So men would get like really jealous and like try to perform their own sacred rituals by cutting their own lingam or penis and wanting to like bleed as well, but it didn't really, obviously it didn't really work, like because they're like biologically not made to bleed every month.
Also, the thing with having your period, it is like even having a womb is something so sacred and holy because you literally can have the ability to birth new life into this world. And when we have our periods, women especially get super psychic and intuitive. And this is something that has been suppressed and repressed by society, by the matrix, by forces that do not want women to step into their full power, and men as well. We all have both masculine and feminine sides. If you're a woman, man, whatever you identify as, you have both polarities within you, and it is up to all of us to make peace with the feminine part of us and to reconnect with that, to worship our own divine feminine side.
If you're a male and you're listening to this, first of all, kudos to you for wanting to learn about this great phenomenon that we women go through every month. And then also just know that you can also work with these like seasons and cycles that women go through every month. In fact, I'm going to be relating the seasons of the woman's cycle to the seasons of nature that we have, as well as the moon, the actual moon, like the moon phases. So we have the full moon, new moon, waxing, and waning moon. So you can actually work with these energies as well. Just work with the moon. So I'm going to be exactly telling you how you can do that. And also, if you don't have a period right now, you can just orient yourself to the moon, like see where the moon's at and use those things to your advantage. So, first of all, like I said, women would actually like the time of the month, which by the way, month, if you look at the word month, you have the word moon in there. So you have the month. Every month is like a moonth. So it's like a moon cycle. People also call the menstrual cycle the moon cycle. So I sometimes like to say I'm on my moon right now. So this means I'm bleeding right now. But also like this just shows like I read today in my Stardust. This I'm sorry if this episode is all over the place, but like I'm really excited and I'm getting better. Like I said, I'm getting better at like structuring these episodes, but I'm just going full divine feminine on this. So I have a little bit of structure, but also I just like to ramble. So we'll see. It's a process and a journey, and we embrace this process and journey as messy as it may be. So I personally like to track my cycle, and I like to use the app Stardust. This is not sponsored, but I love this app so much. And I first discovered it, I don't even know where I discovered it, but I was looking for an app to track my period, and there are so many apps out there, but most apps actually sell your data, and Stardust does not do that. And also I just love that it's like woman led, woman founded as far as I know, and it's like so fun. I love to input my data. So basically you can track your period on there, but also it can predict your period, which can be really helpful if you're trying to conceive or trying to not conceive. You can learn so much about yourself over these months because it's kind of like a little period journal app. So for me, I've noticed so many patterns that I go through in each phase of my cycle, and we're going to get to that later. But I found so many patterns within myself, and it's really fun and interesting to learn these like things about yourself, and utilize them to your own advantage in your business, in your personal life, and your relationships. It's really, really fun. So I like to use the app, and the app also sends you push notifications that are really fun and witty. And the app also has like a really fun like slogan or sentence on it if you go and log onto the app. And today on my profile it said, some people believe that the first calendars were based on women's menstrual and lunar cycles, aka we run this mother. So I love this so much. It got me thinking because I've heard about this like so often that like month comes from the moon cycle. So month, moonth, it's like the moon cycle, like the menstrual cycle. And like the moon also influences the tides in the ocean. The moon also influences the tides within our body. So if you look at our body as the earth, and if you look at the blood that runs through our veins as our water, the moon influences that as well. You can see these connections and how everything is interconnected, and how the moon actually influences not only the tides in the ocean, but also our blood flow and our menstrual cycle and how these things work. So this is so funny and fun to me. And then also, like I said, like sacred bleeding used to be a thing. Like women would get together in tents and like actually sit together in a circle and bleed at the same time, because in tribes, and you also may notice if you live together with a roommate or your sister or whoever it may be, or like another woman, you also notice that like you sync up your cycles because women are meant to be bleeding together. Like it's an actual like tribal thing that we like bleed together. So women would sit around in circles and tents and like bleed straight into the earth, which is so like divine. So also if you bleed into a menstrual cup, what can be so fun is like instead of dumping the cup, I don't even know where you would dump it. I use period underwear because I find it so much more comforting. But if you use a cup, you can just dump the cup into the earth and the earth will love it. Actually, I heard this on Sahara Rose's podcast, High Self podcast, that there's this ancient saying that wars started when women would stop giving the earth its blood because the earth wants our blood. Like it is your blood, your especially your menstrual blood is something so sacred and holy. And you can actually, again, if you collect your blood in a cup, you can put this blood on your face. Do it if you've had like a great month. If you've had a month where you felt like really embodied, if you had a month where you felt like more down and more easily irritated, you can dump the blood into the earth and be like, I release what no longer serves me. But if you've had a great month, you can actually use this blood and put it on your face, and it's a great face mask. Like it is, your blood is so high in so many nutrients and like such great things for your skin. Your skin loves it. If you've heard about like stem cell therapy, what they actually do, I just got this past week, I got stem cell therapy in my knees because I've had issues in my knees. I think I'm going to do a future episode about this, but what they did was just take my blood and then they would um, do something with the blood where like the white separates from the red parts of the blood, and then they would put the white parts of my blood into my knees. And it's because, and it like it was really helpful, by the way. Like if you're looking, like if you have issues with your knees, um I would highly suggest thinking about getting stem cell therapy, because for me it's worked wonders, and I've only done it once. Again, I think I'm going to do a separate episode about this, but the reason why they do it and why it's so effective is because your blood is so high in stem cells, especially the parts of the blood. And I might be messing this up, but this is how I understand it. Especially the white parts of your blood have a lot of stem cells, which have a lot of like healing properties. So like for my knee, it really helped. Also, like it helps to put it on your skin to like make your skin younger.
You may have also heard about vampire facials, where they also take your blood and put it on your face. And if you're bleeding and if you're on your period and you take your blood, it's pretty much the same, but it's completely free. So, yeah.
Like even some people, like in some cultures, they would drink their blood because they would say it had like healing properties, and like it was like an eternal youth serum that people would put on their faces and on their and even drink. So your blood is something so sacred and holy. And I know that if I'm going to have a daughter one day, I know that I will tell her, babe, if you get your period, I'm gonna throw her like a celebratory party, because people also used to do this in the past. When a girl would get her first period, they would throw her a celebratory party, and like she would be adorned in roses, and it would be a celebration to like celebrate her entering into womanhood, but also her entering into being able to birth life, because this is what like this symbolizes as well. But also when you're on your period, you might be noticing that you're more sensitive, and with this also comes being more intuitive at the same time. I notice for myself when I'm on my period, I'm not only more sensitive, but also like I like crave this deep introspection. And women were said to have like
Women were also said to have psychic abilities, especially when they're menstruating and bleeding, and be able to talk to people from other realms, really tap into the divine. And that's why they were also the ones that men would come to if they were looking for guidance or foresight into the future or things like that.
be able to like channel things, or would be able to look into the future. And actually, in tribes, people would go to like the woman, like the men would go to the woman to ask for advice, because women, especially when on their moon cycle, would be so tapped into like the divine consciousness and their own power, and like connected to the universe and like the divine will and whatever you want to call it. But women would be the actual leaders. Like men would go to and ask for advice, because women during this time of our month of our moon cycle, we would have like we would be really really like intuitive and be able to like tap into universal source consciousness. And I'm not saying that men can't do this, and I'm not also not saying that you can't do this if you're not bleeding. You can tap into divine source consciousness always. But I'm just saying this just so you know that having a menstrual cycle, and also if you're a man and you're listening to this, like having a monthly bleed is something so sacred. And if you're a dad or you're about to have children, I highly advise you, as a woman myself and not having been taught about this, to like celebrate your child, or like celebrate women whenever they're on their moon cycle, because it is so deeply ingrained in us to be ashamed of this. And I think it's time to claim our power, and to claim our power back, to call our power back, and step into like this divine feminine knowing and our essence, and being proud of being a woman, of bleeding monthly, and embracing this, also embracing this time of the month. And I love that there's also like the trend of like more raising awareness to all these kinds of things. But um yeah, this is something I wish I knew sooner, especially when I was younger, because I just remember getting my first period, like I said, and being so ashamed of bleeding. I thought it was something really dirty and something to be ashamed of, and I wished I wouldn't have gotten my period. And lo and behold, for 11 years, I did not have a regular period, which is not normal and not healthy. So, starting to learn about the seasons that we women go through, and starting to learn about how sacred and holy the menstrual cycle is, and how sacred and holy it is to be a woman, this started to open me up to wanting to get my period back, and I got my period back. And I was so happy when I first got my period, and now having had it for 2 years now regularly, I am so happy every time I get it. Like, I celebrate it. I tell all my friends, I tell my mom, because it is something that I did not have, and now having my period, I do not take it for granted. Also, I did a lot of I went through a lot of health things, and I think those also play part in it. I was plant-based for 7.5 years in that time where I didn't have my period. And when I started eating animal products again, I started to get my period back again also. I'm not saying you can't be vegan if you want to have your period. I know a lot of people who are vegan and who are thriving and who get their period, but for me personally, it was starting to incorporate animal products into my diet again. And also, ever since I started to incorporate animal products into my diet again, I started to feel so much better and more healthy and more vibrant. So, yeah, but everyone's on their own journey. And I think this is another podcast episode. But for now, this is my little preamble to getting into the actual cycle. So, your period is holy. And now I would love to dive into the actual phases of your cycle. And I took a few notes. If I'm looking down, that's where I'm looking at. Also, I have to clear my throat for 1 second. So I'm going to pause this 1 sec and then we'll continue. Okay, we're back. I think the audio works, so that's great. So we're going to start diving into each phase of the menstrual cycle. We're going to start with the menstrual phase, which is the phase where you bleed. And you might be thinking like it's kind of counterintuitive to start with your actual bleed, but a lot of people consider like the menstrual phase of your cycle to be the first phase. So this is like your bleed, but it's a cycle, so it always like goes in circles. There isn't really a beginning or an end. Um, but we're going to start with the menstrual phase. So this is your inner winter, and it lasts about 3 to 7 days. And this time really is like your menstrual phase is the time where you're bleeding and you may be craving more solitude. This is the time for like introspection, reflection, rest, and nourishment. So you really want to take this time to ground and pamper yourself, and your body actually may be craving this. So you may want to go do like yoga, go on soothing walks, take a hot bath, do some Pilates, anything that helps you to rest and reflect. And also, this is like the sacred pause. This is the shedding of our skin. We're actually shedding our skin.
So, like a snake sheds its skin, we are literally shedding our uterine lining as it is regrowing and recreating itself. So, this is also a great moment to cleanse yourself because your uterus is literally cleansing itself of old energies every single month. And this is such a powerful portal as well.
And it's so funny because also like the Kundalini energy, which is like the serpent rising up our spine, which is often talked about on the yogic and tantric path. We're actually like shedding our own skin like a snake, and this is so like fascinating. Like it's such powerful energy. So we're shedding our skin, and that's why we're bleeding. So we're releasing the old. If you collect your blood in a cup, in a menstrual cup, you can do rituals with your blood. Like I said, if you've had a rather challenging month, you can use your blood in ritual to dump it into the earth or burn it or say, I release what no longer serves me. And then if you've had a great month, you can put it on your face or like paint with it, do like manifestation paintings. Shout out to Mia Magic, she has a great book and also talks a lot about womb wisdom and how you can do rituals, sacred rituals with your menstrual blood. So if you want to learn more about that, I highly recommend you check her out.
Also, if you're into crystals, I highly recommend getting a red carnelian, either as a yoni wand or as a bracelet. I'm actually wearing a red carnelian bracelet in this video. And this stone also helps you just like for me, it feels really soothing. When I'm on my period, it helps me to just lighten up all the symptoms and connect me with my period even deeper.
It's the shedding of our skin, and it's the ending of an old cycle so that we can make space for a new cycle. So we're literally cleansing our bodies. So if you've had anything that's gone on the past month, this is the perfect time because your body is literally cleansing itself from old energy to make space for the new energies to come. So this is the first phase. It's the menstrual phase. Um, like food wise, you want to eat like warming, nourishing foods like stews or maybe sweet potatoes, anything that is like nourishing for you and feels good for your mind, body, and soul.
Also, since you're losing quite a lot of blood, make sure that you stay hydrated, drink coconut water, and make sure that you also replenish your iron levels, either with preferably grass fed organic meat or with supplements, whatever works best for you.
With food and exercise, always, I would say listen to your gut. Yes, there are rules or like charts that you can follow, and I'm going to give you some inspirational things like two, like things you can do, prompts, but always listen to your own body and to what you're craving in each moment, because that can always depend on like the situation, your mood, etc. So yes, menstrual cycle is releasing of the old. We're shedding our skins. We're resting, rejuvenating, and making space for new things to come.
You can also compare it to the winter season where you're more reflective, you stay more indoors, and it's more of a reflective reset kind of vibe.
And then after this death cycle, after we've released old things, there's always a new and fresh start. And this is where you enter into your follicular phase. This is your inner spring. Imagine new flowers blossoming and blooming out of the earth. It's also where your body forms your follicle, so your egg. And you might be really in a good mood. It's because your estrogen levels are rising and you might have more energy during this time too. Also, this is the perfect time to create affirmations for the coming month, to create intentions, to set goals. And like you might be feeling really inspired during this phase too. So it's a great time to take aligned action, to plan for the month ahead. And also, if you have a lot of energy, like you can do some cardio, some swimming, you can lift more heavy weights here too because you have more energy. Also, this is the perfect time for big picture thinking. So, write your to do list, brainstorm, like think big and plan for the month ahead. This is the time to do that. It's your inner spring. This phase lasts 7 to 10 days. And I would say this is including the menstrual phase. Like a menstrual cycle can be from like, I've read something about like 21 to 40-ish days. Like sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but generally you could say like one menstrual phase or like 1 month of your bleeding is like around 28 months.
Whoopsie, I meant to say 28 days, not 28 months. Maybe if we were immortal fairies like an Akatar, it would be 28 months, but it's 28 days, kind of like how long it takes for the moon to become full again.
Also, what I forgot to say, the menstrual phase is like it's symbolized by the new moon energy. So think of the void, because when there's a new moon, there's like not a lot of light in the sky, right? It's kind of like we're in the void and women would be sitting together in tents, like I said, in this void together. This is symbolized by the new moon, this like menstrual phase. And so now in the follicular phase, the moon is growing. I don't know if it's English is not my first language. I don't know if it's called waxing or waning.
So after the new moon, we have the waxing moon, which is symbolized by the inner spring, by the follicular phase, so by new energies growing. Obviously, you can bleed also during the full moon or during the waxing or waning moon. Like this is just for when you're a male or if you don't have a period right now and just want some orientation and like what the moon phases are typically symbolized by. And also there's like a whole science if you're bleeding on a full moon or new moon, what kind of phase of life you're in. But this is a whole new topic. Just so you know, this is just basic 101. Yeah, so let's get back into the episode.
The moon is growing. So it's like growing towards the full moon. That's during the follicular phase. Obviously, this is metaphorically speaking. You might be menstruating during the full moon as well, or like during the waxing or waning moon. But it's just like if you're a male or if you're not bleeding currently and you just want to have some ideas of where to start or like how to use these energies, this is a great start. So, new moon symbolized by the menstrual phase, or the menstrual phase symbolized by the new moon. And then you have the follicular phase where you have lots of energy, big picture thinking, planning, thinking ahead for the month, setting goals and intentions. And this is where your egg is forming and hormone levels like estrogen, testosterone are rising. So then you have the third phase, which is the ovulatory phase. Lasts around 3 to 4 days. And you have the one event, which is called the ovulation. And the ovulation, in and of itself, is like the releasing of the egg. This is also the phase where you're the most fertile, physically and metaphorically speaking. And you have this ovulation event, which is like the 24-hour event of your egg being like released. But during this time, you're your most fertile physically. So if you want to conceive a baby, this is a great time to get pregnant. If you don't want to conceive a baby, be safe. And then also, metaphorically speaking, this is the time where you are the most fertile. So you might want to go out and socialize and party and dance and hang out with friends. Also, this is the perfect time to take action on these projects you've been thinking about and planning. So it's the perfect time to take action, to manifest. Because you have your most energy here. So here, your testosterone, your LH, your um, estrogen are all at its peak. So you're at your peak energy. It's like, think of summer energy, like vibes are high, energy is good, you're happy. That's your ovulatory phase. So this is also symbolized by the full moon. So, like, think of there's like the light is illuminated. I always love to think of like women or like witches dancing around the fire and like dancing and chanting and manifesting peace and love and harmony. So, it's like full moon energy. Like, there's lots of energy in your own like vessel. So, it's like socializing, partying, dancing, and also continuing building your goals. Also, this is the perfect time to like take action. If you have like meetings, it's great to schedule them in this phase, in your ovulatory phase. Also, like working out wise, hit workouts can be great. You can have lift really heavy weights because you have a lot of energy. Cardio, like really energetic movements, can be great in this phase. Obviously, always listen to your own energy levels and your own like gut. But yeah, and then food wise, like fruits are great in this phase. Like, make sure you get a lot of fiber in because digestion can start to slow down, especially when you enter into your luteal phase. But yeah, this is your ovulatory phase. So it's like summer peak energy, taking aligned action. And also your most fertile phase, metaphorically speaking and physically speaking. And so then after your ovulation, after your egg has released, after your egg has left its station and like made its way down to, I am so bad. I should probably be better with like words and like terms, but I don't have them in my mind. So
Hello guys, Amy editing here. So your egg is traveling through the fallopian tube and then towards the uterus. And then also the egg is either fertilized by sperm or it's not fertilized. And depending on which happens, you either get pregnant or you shed your uterine lining. So the fertilized egg would be in the uterine lining and start to form a baby. But if you're not getting pregnant that month, then you will shed your uterine lining, which is you having your period. So those were the terms that I was looking for. And with that being said, let's get back into the episode.
once your egg has left the station, it's like heading down and waiting for like basically to either, what's the right word, when like the sperm comes and a baby forms, or it's just like waiting there and nothing comes and then it sheds and you bleed. So the time where the egg is just like sitting there and like waiting and nothing really happens, that's like your luteal phase. So it's like the egg has left the station and it's like just like now this like waiting period begins.
And this is also the time if the egg got fertilized, then your body is kind of wired to like protect the fertilized egg at all costs. And this is also why people say that in your luteal phase, you may get a little bit more cranky or irritable. This is because like your mama instincts kind of kick in, even if your egg did not get fertilized and it's just like sitting there and waiting to shed with the uterine lining. But it's just your body also gets a little bit hotter. You may notice in the beginning of your luteal phase, because this is your body's way of making sure that the fertilized egg survives and stays fertilized and that a beautiful baby can form. So it's just wonderful how our bodies work. Yeah, just wanting to throw that in there too.
And this is also where your body and your energy levels and where your body just wants to start to slow down. So this is your inner fall or inner autumn, and it lasts around 12 to 14 days until your period starts. You might want to start to slow down. Also, your hormones are, so your estrogen, testosterone are dipping again, so like going down, and then also your progesterone is rising, which is like a hormone where you Like I personally, I notice myself when my progesterone rises and I'm in my luteal phase, I need to like sleep a lot. I feel like a sloth sometimes. You also may notice that you get a little bit more bloated. You also might notice increased appetite. In your follicular and ovulatory phase, you might notice decreased appetite because like your hormones are really high. You have a lot of estrogen, testosterone, so you have a lot of energy naturally. So you might not need as much food as you might need in your luteal phase. Like your body actually burns, I think it's like 10, about 10% more calories during your luteal phase too, just because it just needs more energy. Also, digestion slows down because your body needs more, like wants to absorb more nutrients, which is so fascinating. And then also what forgot to say, during the ovulatory phase, so like the phase where you're most fertile, you might notice changes in your facial structure.
And the reason your face gets more symmetrical is just nature's way of making sure that you, like biologically and from an evolutionary standpoint, to make sure that women would find a mate during the time that they were their most fertile, to make sure that the bloodline continues and humanity as a species would survive.
So, like, biology would make your face more attractive and symmetrical during this time, which I find so fascinating. So, that's during your ovulatory phase. And then you can fast forward about 1 week, which is when you're in your luteal phase. So, this is like your inner fall. And you might notice changes that are like night and day. For me, it's so funny. Like, I notice changes if I look back, if I'm in my luteal phase, like middle of my luteal phase, and I look back 1 week where I was ovulating, like I would have so much energy, would feel so sexy and beautiful. And then 1 week, like even just 1 week later, can make such a big difference.
And even one day can make such a big difference. If you're in the middle of ovulation and you might feel on top of the world, and then the next day ovulation is over, and you may start to feel like a complete sloth. But this is normal, and this is just how our seasons are. And yeah, we're cyclical beings, and everything always goes round and round in seasons in our bodies, which is so cool.
But this is biologically natural to be going through these stages.
So then when you're in your luteal phase, you may notice changes in your facial structure.
Like you might notice your face getting a little bit more bloated. Your what's the right word? Like everything is getting a little bit softer in your body. You might notice an increase in being a little bit more emotional, a little bit more sensitive, emotionally as well as physically. Like everything starts to like soften and like slow down a little bit. Um, Also, like work wise, the inner fall and the luteal phase is a great phase to finalize projects, to evaluate the month, and yeah, to like finalize and evaluate, and to like, I like to look at it as like taking your harvest in, because as you know, in like fall you have Thanksgiving, so it's like giving thanks to the crops that you've earned, or like giving thanks to the past year. So your luteal phase kind of is like that as well. It's like finalizing things, giving thanks, reflecting, or like starting to reflect, evaluate, and also finalizing tasks.
So this is the perfect time where you can cross all your T's, dot all your I's. I always feel like when I'm in my luteal phase, I am really great at like organizing things or like doing some Excel spreadsheets. Whereas in my follicular phase, I just want to be creative and plan. In my luteal phase, it's more about, yeah, grounding things down and finishing things off.
This is also a great time to like for like minute details. Like you might be really noticing that in your follicular, so like in your spring and summer, you're like big picture thinking, lots of energy. And then as your body starts to slow down in your luteal and menstrual phase, you're like more aware of like details and like finalizing things. Um, Looking at Excel sheets for maybe like to me, I noticed I like have like more attention to detail in my luteal phase. And this is also like what what's natural as well. So yeah, and then food wise, I would say like protein's always important, but also like having starchy carbs. I like to, um, especially in the winter time, I love to have like sweet potatoes or pumpkin like starchy carbs on hand, and also I make sure to get my protein in. Protein's like always important. Um, yeah, so like that's great food wise, and then also, but again, always listen to your gut, and then working out wise, like you also might want to slow down. So again, if you're feeling like you want to do a crazy hit workout in your luteal phase, kudos to you. That's great. I still sometimes love to like box and like do boxing and swimming in my luteal phase, but like energy wise, I'm still okay. So my phone just like died on me. I don't know how much time we have left, so I'm gonna wrap this up quickly. Um, but yeah, you might notice that you have less energy. So, like, give yourself grace, be kind to yourself in this phase. Be kind to yourself always, but especially in your luteal phase, you might be feeling more sensitive. So, be kind to yourself, be gentle, and give yourself, like, shower yourself in self love always, but especially in your luteal phase, you might notice that you might need it, especially because also you might be like experiencing PMS symptoms or feeling a little bit more crabby. Also, you might be noticing that you want to have more chocolate because chocolate has like a lot of magnesium. So, like, take magnesium in your luteal phase, especially because like it's great to like relax your muscles, take a relaxing bath. Bananas are great because they have potassium too.
Also, when you want to minimize your PMS symptoms in your luteal phase, make sure that you eat raw carrots during your follicular phase or ovulatory phase because raw carrots or like fiber in general bind excess estrogen. And if you eat raw carrots during your follicular and luteal phase where estrogen is really high in general, you bind those excess estrogens. And then that will lead to less PMS symptoms later on in your cycle. So I know we're kind of jumping back and forth between the phases, but raw carrots are always great to eat. Like one raw carrot, you can also make a raw carrot salad. If you don't like carrots, try like broccoli or spinach. Try to make it fun. You can put like a little bit of spinach in a smoothie and you won't taste it. Yeah, always make sure that you feel good with whatever you eat and that you like it, but raw carrots are just great also for detoxing in general. And if you don't like raw carrots, just cruciferous vegetables in general are also great for estrogen detox. And flax seeds, chia seeds, those also bind excess estrogens. I know there is like food wise, there are so many opinions. So I'm just giving you some information, things that I like to do, but always do your own research and make sure that you feel in tune and in alignment with whatever it is you're doing because everybody's body is different. So, yeah.
You can just like Google what to eat in each phase of your menstrual cycle, and then there are great things that come up on Pinterest or Google. But those are some of the things that I have learned for myself and that I have helped me so much to tap into my own cycle and to get attuned with it and to know what I need during each time of the month. And during each phase of my cycle. And then also, like I said, just tracking my cycle and using the Upstartist has helped me so much. Just getting to know myself better, getting to know my own needs better, and just being aware of what's going on with my body. I feel like just having awareness and knowing yourself, getting to know yourself is so important in reclaiming our power and reclaiming this divine feminine energy that's currently rising. So, yeah, these are some things that I find super helpful for me and that I wish I'd known sooner. And I hope that they also may bring you some inspiration, clarity, or just, yeah, something interesting to ponder and think about. If you found this helpful, I'd be so happy if you could rate this podcast, give it 5 stars, share it with your friends, share it with someone who may be going through it right now and who may be needing this information or who this might be helpful for. Also, feel free to comment on this podcast. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. You can find me at Amelie.Saling. Same goes for TikTok. And if you're interested in a free holistic life coaching or holistic business consulting session, I also offer that. You can check out my website, www.ameliesaling.com, for that. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to comment on my latest Instagram post what you loved most about this episode. If you have any questions or things you would like me to talk about, feel free to message me on Instagram. I'd be so happy to see you there. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I am so excited to see you in the next episode. I'm sure we will be talking more about the menstrual cycle on this podcast. So this was just a great start and introductory podcast. I would love to have actual professionals on this podcast talking about this topic because I find it so important. So if you're someone who specializes in this, also feel free to reach out to me. But other than that, I love you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode. Much love. Bye.